Real estate broker Sharon McLennan here, and today we're going to go over 11 things that you need to know for a successful home inspection. So, without further ado, let's dive on in. So, as a seller, you may be asking yourself, why is having a home inspection so important? What makes inspections matter more nowadays than they did maybe in the past? And one of the key things to keep in mind is insurance rules. So, a lot of times you do need to have, as a buyer, an inspection report that you can present to your insurance company to be able to bind insurance to be able to close on your purchase. Over the last couple of years, we've been hit by a few storms, and that has impacted the insurance landscape that we have here in South Florida. And one of the things that has become increasingly important is, as insurance companies look for ways to mitigate risk, they're wanting to make sure that they have a full understanding of the condition of the property, and they're making the decision as to whether or not they will choose to insure it. So while inspections have always been important from a buyer perspective and for giving the buyer confidence, which it still does, nowadays it has become even more important because in many cases, if you don't have a good inspection report, if you don't have a clean result, your buyer will not be able to get insurance and the deal will fall apart because without insurance, they're not going to be able to close because they can't get financing. Some of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about insurance is the age of your roof, electrical panels, plumbing, and overall condition. All of these will factor in to whether or not the insurance company will be willing to take on the risk of the property and issue insurance. If I had to say the single biggest thing that creates a problem as it relates to insurance in our marketplace, I would have to say the age of the roof. A lot of times we have roofs that are older, but they're sound, they're not leaking. But just based on the age of the roof, the insurance company may decide that they're not going to take on the property. They're not willing to take the risk. Roofs that typically tend to be 10 to 15 years old or older, those homes typically have a challenge for a new buyer to be able to secure insurance. So one of the key things that you want to keep in mind when you're selling your property is you want to find out, or you want to know exactly how old your roof is. Big factor. Another typical big ticket item that comes up on the insurance report is the HVAC, the air conditioning. A lot of companies will offer a service check or a pre-check, especially as we're getting into the summertime when they know that the AC is going to get a lot of usage. They will be really reasonable, maybe $75 to $150 to come out to look at your AC, evaluate it, make sure that it's in fighting form and ready for the summer months. If you're thinking about selling, one easy thing to do is have that service done on your AC unit. And you might be saying, if I'm getting ready to move and my AC's been working fine all along, why would I take on that expense? But honestly speaking, that $75 to $150 charge is a small price to pay to know that is not going to be an issue coming up on your inspection report. And if it is going to be an issue, knowing that on the front end, before putting the property in the market, will allow you to strategize and to get the best possible outcome. And at the end of the day, that is the goal, the best possible outcome out of your home sale process. Another quick tip is to fix minor maintenance things early. Electrical quick fixes, make sure that switches work when you turn them on. When you flip them on, the lights come on. Replace light bulbs, things like that will show that the home is well cared for. Also, any type of leaking faucet, any small plumbing issue that will become evident during the course of the inspection, I also suggest that you go ahead and get that taken care of. At the end of the day, what the buyer is looking for is they're looking for signs that this home has been well cared for. And small, minor maintenance issues do not align with that narrative. So if you're looking to put your home on the market and you want to get the best possible outcome by convincing the potential buyer or the potential buyers that your home has been well cared for and is in good shape, the little nuisance things that don't cost a lot of money to fix, that maybe you've been living with for several months now or even years, those are things that you want to take care of, because while for you it's not that big of a deal, you're signaling to the potential buyer that there could be other issues that have been deferred and not addressed in this home, and that will translate into them wanting to potentially negotiate a lot of dollars off of your asking price, when in fact we don't need to go down that road at all. Another strategy ahead of your listing is looking at electrical and plumbing updates, making sure that you have someone come in and determine whether or not your electrical paneling, and I see that the most electrical paneling is outdated, particularly in older homes. Also, if you have an older home, what kind of plumbing do you have? Is it cast iron pipes? That has come up to be a huge issue in recent times, as well as PVC piping, which has a history of bursting and flooding properties, and a lot of times is a no-go for insurance carriers. So again, making sure that your paneling is correct, is up to code, it's the right type, no clogged wires, no prohibited panels are on the property, as well as making sure that you're aware of what the plumbing is in the property. One, you can speak to it, we can speak to it in marketing the property, but also when it comes back on the buyer's inspection, it's not going to be a surprise, and we will have had an opportunity to come up with some mitigation plan to deal with that, be that some type of concession or some adjustment in the price or working some other arrangement out. But we would have had an opportunity to strategize that, as opposed to being caught off guard during the sale process and now having to try to find a way to resolve the situation in mid-transaction. Another thing to take care of ahead of your home inspection is making sure that the place is as clean and as decluttered as maybe there's portions of the property that you don't use. Make sure that all of that is accessible during the inspection. Remember, the inspector is going to go into every room. They are potentially going into the attic. They are, if you have an elevated home, they'll be looking at crawl space. So make sure that they have the ability to access all areas of the home so that they can provide a comprehensive report, and we don't have to have them come back. Another thing that is not on our deck, but it's important to keep in mind, is make sure that ahead of your inspection, electrical is on at the property as well as water. Now, in some cases, maybe you've already moved out of the property ahead of getting it sold, and maybe you've turned off the electric and turned off the water. It's really important that those two things be beyond that the property has all the utilities in place, because the inspector will not be able to complete their report if they don't have access to turn everything on, and that's not going to be possible if there are no utilities on at the property. Some other quick tips to just present your home in the best possible light: trim trees away from the roof. That way there's no overhang. That has come up oftentimes in inspection reports. And replace your old smoke detectors. Make sure that the smoke detectors are there, they have batteries, they're working, and they're in good shape ahead of the inspector coming out, because those will be tested. Clear your gutters and downspouts. Make sure that in the event of rain, we're not going to have a backup. Have that all taken care of. Again, that's something that you don't want to come up on your inspection report. That's just one more thing that you're going to have to address at that time. In bathrooms, particularly older bathrooms, there may be situations where the caulking around the tub or the grout may be starting to wear out. That's an easy fix, to go in and make sure that you recaulk and regrout, if necessary, the areas around the tub and the sinks, so that it's light and bright and it's doing what it's supposed to, being waterproof. And then check for moisture or stains. Make sure, particularly roof stains, if there's any stains on the ceiling or anywhere else, make sure that you address those. If it's a former leak that's been corrected, make sure that you do the painting to cover up whatever that stain was, provided that the leak has been fixed. It's important to make sure that you're not trying to paint over an active leak, because that would be seen as trying to misguide the buyer, And that's not what you want to do in the course of your home sale. That opens you up to liability and all types of other exposure when that comes to light later on down the road, and just is not a good practice. One big suggestion is getting ahead of all of these type of surprises by getting a pre-listing inspection. Have the inspector come out. It usually costs a couple $100, $300 to $500 to get an inspection done, depending on the size of your home and the type of property that you have, and have them come out and do the full inspection that a buyer's inspector would do. And what they'll provide you with a report. They'll show you all of the defects or all of the things that might need correction that they've identified, and then they're going to give you an estimate of the costs to repair those items. So you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you're going to do the work, but two, when it comes up again, as it relates to the buyer's inspection, one, you're not surprised, and two, you can offer to make some concession based on actual prices that you've been given as to what it would cost to do this type of work. So again, you're prepared, you know exactly what to do. None of this is coming up as a surprise and having you have to backtrack. So this is a big question. What happens if an issue does come up on your inspection report? The buyer brings the inspector in, they've done the inspection, and there's an issue. What do you do next? The most important thing to do is to recognize that this is a transaction. This is business. Yes, there are a lot of emotions that are involved, but don't get emotional about it. Every issue does have a solution. We just have to make sure that we have the right approach. Typically, what happens when the issues have been identified is I work with my sellers to identify the ones that are cosmetic and the ones that are significant or lender required repairs. So there are some repairs that if they're not done, the lender is not going to finance the property. Those obviously are a lot more important than the more cosmetic type of repairs that may be identified in the inspection report. So we assess all of the findings and we make sure that we have a strategy in place to address the lender required repairs, and then we'll come up with a plan to deal with the less important cosmetic repairs. Make sure that you are open to offering credits or doing the repair yourself. If you have someone who can come in, you have a trusted service provider who could come in and provide the repairs that have been identified, and you feel comfortable doing that, as opposed to giving the buyer a credit to have them find somebody to do it, by all means, we can propose that as an option. Or if you just would rather not be bothered and you want to sell the property as it sits right now, and there are lender required repairs, maybe we'll put funds in escrow to be able to have those repairs taken care of, and that we can make a decision that will help the transaction move forward. At the end of the day, the goal, again, is to get you the best possible outcome and not having to go back and cancel a deal and put your property back on the market after an inspection. The next buyer is going to be coming in with an inspection and may likely discover all of the same things, in addition to which, once you've been informed about these things from your first buyer's inspection report, you have a duty to disclose it to a potential new buyer. So it's not to say that if they don't discover it, it's not an issue. You actually have an obligation or a responsibility to disclose that to the new buyer so that they would have all the information as they're making their decision. So again, in your best interest to not try to hide that, to make sure that we are compliant and that we get the best possible outcome for you. It's really important to remember that inspections are not pass-fail. What they are is a negotiation tool. So typically the buyer will come in, they will have their inspection done. They're looking to see if there are opportunities for them to go back to the table and either renegotiate the price or have the seller provide some additional resources to help correct potential problems that they will be responsible for after closing. The key in this situation is to make sure that we are protecting the transaction and moving it forward. You want to make sure that you are aware, depending upon the condition and age of your property, you have an expectation of what is going to be coming back. So if you have a roof that's 20 years old, even if it's not leaking, what we would do is sit and talk about that and just realize that there is a possibility that may be an issue, a strong possibility that may be an issue coming into getting financing with a first-time home buyer. The goal is looking at the strategy, trying to protect your bottom line, and making sure that we position you and your property in the most favorable light possible so that you can get the best possible outcome. For guidance on how to manage the inspection process, please visit my website at simplyaskSharon.com, where you can download free resources about the inspection process. I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please like the video, and also please remember to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified when new videos come out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.